Welcome to the Learning Center. Today we're going to be going over personal protective equipment. When protective clothing, goggles, respiratory devices, and other protective shields and barriers are provided, employees are required to use them and are responsible to maintain them in a sanitary and reliable condition. Only those items of protective clothing and equipment that meet NIOSH or ANSI standards will be allowed and accepted for use. Equipment should be inspected, cleaned, and maintained at regular intervals so that the equipment provides the needed protection. Personal protective equipment shall not be shared between employees until it has been properly cleaned and sanitized. Equipment will be distributed for individual use whenever possible. Personal protective equipment should not be used as a substitute for engineering, work practice, or administrative controls. Personal protective equipment should be used in conjunction with these controls to provide for employee safety and health in the workplace. Using personal protective equipment requires hazard awareness and training on part of the user. Employees must be aware that the equipment does not eliminate the hazard. If the equipment fails, exposure will occur. To reduce the possibility of failure, equipment must be properly fitted and maintained in a clean and serviceable condition. Employers are required to assess the workplace to determine if hazards that require the use of personal protective equipment are present or are likely to be present. If hazards or the likelihood of hazards are found, employers must select and have affected employees use properly fitted personal protective equipment suitable for protection from these hazards. Employers must certify in writing that a workplace hazard assessment has been performed. Defective or damaged personal protective equipment shall not be used. Before doing work requiring the use of personal protective equipment, employees must be trained to know when personal protective equipment is necessary, what type is necessary, how it is to be worn, what its limits are, know its proper care, maintenance, useful life, and disposal, and in many cases, more than one type of personal protective equipment will provide needed protection. In those instances, employees should be given a choice. Employers must certify in writing that training has been carried out and that the employees understand it. Each written certification shall contain the name of each employee trained, the dates of training, and identify the subject certified. Head injuries are caused by falling or flying objects, or by bumping the head against a fixed object. Head protection in the form of protective hats must do two things: resist penetration and absorb the shock of the blow. Company requires all construction areas are considered hard hat areas during active work periods. All employees and visitors must wear ANSI Z89.1-1986 helmets during work hours and while inside construction areas. Employees exposed to high voltage electric shock hazards or burns shall wear protective helmets designed to reduce electrical shock hazards. Standards recognized by OSHA for protective hats purchased prior to July 5, 1994 are contained in ANSI requirements for industrial head protection, Z89.1-1969, and ANSI requirements for industrial protective hats for electrical workers, Z89.2-1971. Each type and class of head protectors is intended to provide protection against specific hazardous conditions. An understanding of these conditions will help in selecting the right hat for the particular situation. Protective hats are made in the following types and classes. Type 1. Helmets with full brim, not less than 1 1/4 inch wide. And Type 2. Brimless hats with a peak extending forward from the crown. For industrial purposes, three classes of helmets are recognized. Class A. General Service Limited Voltage Protection. Hats and caps under Class A are intended for protecting against impact hazards. They are used in mining, construction, shipbuilding, tunneling, lumbering, and manufacturing. Class B. Utility Service High Voltage Helmets. Utility service hats and caps protect the wearer's head from impact and penetration by falling or flying objects and from high voltage shock and burns. They are used extensively by electrical workers. Class C. Special Service No Voltage Protection. safety hat or cap in Class C is designed specifically for lightweight comfort and impact protection. This class is usually manufactured from aluminum and offers no electrical protection. Class C helmets are used in certain construction and manufacturing occupations, oil fields, refineries, and chemical plants where there is no danger from electrical hazards or corrosion. They are also used on occasions when there is a possibility of bumping the head against a fixed object. Headbands are adjustable in 1/8 size increments. When the headband is adjusted to the right size, it provides sufficient clearance between the shell and the headband. The removable or replaceable type sweatband should cover at least the forehead portion of the headband. The shell should be of one-piece seamless construction and designed to resist the impact of a blow from falling material. The internal creel of the headband and sweatband forms the suspension. Any part that comes into contact with the wearer's head must not be irritating to normal skin. Manufacturers should be consulted with regard to paint or cleaning materials for their helmets because some paints and thinners may damage the shell and reduce protection by physically weakening it or negating electrical resistance. A common method of cleaning shells is dipping them in hot water approximately around 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Obtain a good detergent for at least a minute. Shells should then be scrubbed and rinsed in clear hot water. After rinsing, the shell should be carefully inspected for any signs of damage. All components, shells, suspensions, headbands, sweatbands, and any accessories should be physically inspected daily for signs of dents, cracks, penetration, or any other damage that might reduce the degree of safety provided. Users are cautioned that if unusual conditions occur, such as higher or lower extreme temperatures than described in the standards, or if there are signs of abuse or mutilation of the helmet or any component, the margin of safety may be reduced. Helmets should not be stored or carried on the rear window shelf of an automobile, since sunlight and extreme heat may adversely affect the degree of protection. If damage is suspected, helmets should be replaced or representative samples tested in accordance with procedures containing ANSI C89.1-1986. Employers are encouraged to use up-to-date national consensus standards that provide employee protection equal to or greater than that provided by OSHA standards. Eye and face protective equipment is required by OSHA where there is a reasonable probability of preventing injury when such equipment is used. Employers must provide a type of protector suitable for work to be performed, and employees must use the protectors. These stipulations also apply to supervisors and management personnel and should apply to visitors while they are in hazardous areas. Employees must use eye and face protection equipment when machines or operations present potential eye or face injury from physical, chemical, or radiation agents. They include but are not limited to working with, near, or being exposed to the following: electric or welding, burning, cutting, gouging, or any other potentially injurious light radiation, abrasive wheels, portable grinders, or other power tools during cutting, grinding, drilling, or chipping of materials that could cause sparks, chips, dust, or flying particles. Any material subject to scaling, flaking, or chipping. Hot or molten metal, liquid chemicals, acids or caustic liquids, chemical gases or vapors, or other hazardous substances, such as glass. Windy or dusty working conditions, sandblasting, water blasting, compressed air, or compressed gases. Laser beams or other sources of intense light or glare. Explosion-actuated fastening or nailing tools. Employees shall use eye protection that provides sight protection when there is a hazard from flying objects. Each employee who wears prescription lenses shall wear eye protection designed to be worn over prescription lenses or engage in operations that involve eye hazards. Suitable eye protectors must be provided when there is a potential for injury to the eyes or face from flying particles, molten metal, liquid chemicals, acids or caustic liquids, chemical gases or vapors, potentially injurious light radiation, or a combination of these. Protectors must meet the following minimum requirements: provide adequate protection against the particular hazards for which they are designed, be reasonably comfortable when worn under the designated conditions, Fit snugly without interfering with the movements or vision of the wearer. Be durable. Be capable of being disinfected. Be easily cleanable. Be kept clean and in good repair. Every protector shall be distinctly marked to facilitate identification of the manufacturer. Each affected employee shall use equipment with filter lenses that have a shade number appropriate for the work being performed for protection from injurious light radiation. OSHA and the National Society to Prevent Blindness recommend that emergency eye washes be placed in all hazardous locations. First aid instructions should be posted close to potential danger spots, since any delay to immediate aid or an early mistake in dealing with an injury can result in lasting damage. Each eye, face, or face and eye protector is designed for a particular hazard. In selecting the protector, consideration should be given to the kind and degree of hazard, and the protector should be selected on that basis. Where a choice of protectors is given and the degree of protection required is not an important issue, worker comfort may be a deciding factor. Persons using corrective spectacles and those who are required by OSHA to wear eye protection must wear face shields, goggles, or spectacles of one of the following types. Spectacles with protective lenses providing optical correction. Goggles are worn over corrective spectacles without disturbing the adjustment of the spectacles. Goggles that incorporate corrective lenses mounted behind the protective lenses. When limitations or precautions are indicated by the manufacturer, it should be transmitted to the user and strictly observed. Goggles come in several different styles: eye cups, flexible or cushioned goggles, plastic eye shield goggles, or Foundry's Men goggles. Goggles are manufactured in several styles for specific uses such as protection against dust and splashes, and in chippers, welders, and cutter models. Safety spectacles require special frames. Combinations of normal streetwear frames with safety lenses are not in compliance. The lenses of eye protectors must be kept clean. Continuous vision through dirty lenses can cause eye strain, often an excuse for not wearing eye protectors. Daily inspection and cleaning of the eye protector with soap and hot water, or with the cleaning solution and tissue, is recommended. Pitted lenses, like dirty lenses, can be a source of reduced vision. They should be replaced. Deeply scratched or excessively pitted lenses are apt to break more readily. Slack, worn out, sweat-soaked, or twisted headbands do not hold the eye protector in the proper position. Visual inspection can determine when the headband elasticity is reduced to a point beyond proper function. Goggles should be kept in a case when not in use. Spectacles, in particular, should be given the same care as one's glasses, since the frame, nose pads, and temples can be damaged by rough usage. Personal protective equipment that has been previously used should be disinfected before being issued to another employee. Also, when each employee is assigned protective equipment for extended periods, it is recommended that such equipment be cleaned and disinfected regularly. Exposure to high noise levels can cause hearing loss or impairment. It can create physical and psychological stress. There is no cure for noise-induced hearing loss, so the prevention of excessive noise exposure is the only way to avoid hearing damage. Wax cotton, foam, or fiberglass wool earplugs are self-forming. When properly inserted, they work as well as most molded earplugs. The company requires that appropriate hearing protection shall be worn in work areas where noise levels exceed established local, state, or federal standards. Plain cotton is not an acceptable protective device. Some earplugs are disposable, to be used one time and then thrown away. The non-disposable type should be cleaned after each use for proper protection. Plain cotton is ineffective as protection against hazardous noise. Earmuffs need to make a perfect round seal around the ear to be effective. Glasses, long sideburns, long hair, and facial movements such as chewing can reduce protection. Special equipment is available for use with glasses or beards. Respirators shall be used in the following circumstances: where exposure levels exceed the permissible exposure level, during the time period necessary to install or implement feasible engineering and work practice controls, in those maintenance and repair activities, and during those brief or intermittent operations where exposures exceed the PEL and engineering and work practice controls are not feasible or are not required. in regulated areas, where the employer has implemented all feasible engineering and work practice controls, and such controls are not sufficient to reduce exposures to or below the PEL. In emergencies. Further, when equipment is needed to protect against airborne contaminations, such as dust, fogs, fumes, mist, gases, smoke, spray, or vapors, the proper respiratory protection will be provided by the company. Employees must be properly trained and then use the equipment as instructed. Many hazards can threaten the torso. Heat, splashes from hot metals, and liquids, impacts, cuts, acids, and radiation. A variety of protective clothing is available. Vests, jackets, aprons, coveralls, and full body suits. Wool and specially treated cotton are two natural fibers that are fire resistant and comfortable since they adapt well to changing workplace temperatures. Duck, a closely woven cotton fabric, is good for light-duty protective clothing. It can protect against cuts and bruises on jobs where employees handle heavy, sharp, or rough material. Heat-resistant materials such as leather is often used in protective clothing to guard against dry heat and flame. Rubber and rubberized fabrics, neoprene, and plastics give protection against some acids and chemicals. It is important to refer to the manufacturer's selections guide for the effectiveness of specific materials against specific chemicals. Disposable suits of plastic or other similar synthetic materials are particularly important for protection from dusty materials or materials that can splash. If the substance is extremely toxic, a completely enclosed chemical suit may be necessary. The clothing should be inspected to ensure proper fit and function for continued protection. Injuries to arms and hands are burns, cuts, electrical shock, amputation, absorption of chemicals. Employees shall wear appropriate hand protection where hands are exposed to hazards, such as those from skin absorption of harmful substances, severe cuts and lacerations, severe abrasions, punctures, chemical burns, thermal burns, and harmful temperature extremes. Managers need to determine what hand protection their employees need. The work activities of the employee should be studied to determine the degree of dexterity required, the duration, frequency, and degree of exposure to hazards, and the physical stress that will be applied. Gloves' performance characteristics should be assessed by using standard test procedures. Before purchasing gloves, the employer should request documentation from the manufacturer that the gloves meet the appropriate test standards for the hazards anticipated. The protective device should be selected to fit the job. Employees may need to use gloves such as wire, mesh, leather, and canvas that have been tested and provide insulation from burns and cuts. The employee should become acquainted with the limitations of the clothing used. For the protection of feet and legs from falling or rolling objects, sharp objects, snake bites, molten metal, hot surfaces, and wet slippery surfaces, workers should use appropriate foot guards, safety shoes, or boots and leggings. Leggings protect the lower leg and feet from molten metal or welding sparks and snake bites. Safety snaps or Velcro permit their rapid removal. Employees shall furnish and wear safety-toed footwear when working in areas where there is a danger of foot injuries due to the falling and rolling objects, or objects piercing the sole, and where employees' feet are exposed to molten and electrical hazards. Aluminum alloy, fiberglass, and galvanized steel foot guards can be worn over usual work shoes, although they may present the possibility of catching on something and causing workers to trip. Heat-resistant soled shoes to protect against hot surfaces like those found in the roofing, paving, and hot metal industries. Safety shoes should be sturdy and have an impact-resistant toe. In some shoes, metal insoles protect against puncture wounds. Additional protection, such as metal tarsal guards, may be found in some types of footwear. Safety footwear is classified according to its ability to meet minimum requirements for both compression and impact tests. These requirements and testing procedures may be found in American National Standards Institute standards. Protective footwear purchased after July 5, 1994 must comply with ANSI Z41-1991, American National Standard for Personal Protection protective footwear. Employees must wear safety belts and secure lanyards while working from unguarded surfaces where the possibility of a hazardous fall to a different level is present. Safety belts and straps shall be provided, and the employer shall ensure their use when work is performed at positions more than 4 feet above the ground, on poles, on towers, and lift equipment. Each employee will also wear a safety belt with a safety lanyard, secured to a separate lifeline, while working from a boat swing chair, swing scaffold, or other suspended work platform. Lifelines and lanyards are to be secured above the worker to an anchorage capable of supporting a minimum dead weight of 5,400 pounds. Safety belts shall be able to carry a tensile load of 4,000 pounds without damage. If a safety belt, lanyard, or lifeline is ever subjected to a service loading, it is not to be used for employee safety protection again. Employees working near roadways, night workers, and flagmen who might be struck by moving vehicles need suits or vests designed to reflect light. A Coast Guard approved life jacket or buoyant work vest should be used if there is a danger of falling into the water while working. For emergency rescue operations, boats and ring buoys with at least 90 feet of the line must be provided. All protective equipment furnished by the company will be returned to the company when terminated employment with the company or moving to another job location. Employees are financially responsible for the proper care and return of safety equipment and will take care not to lose or damage it. It is the responsibility of supervisors to train each employee under his or her supervision to recognize, avoid, and prevent unsafe and hazardous conditions connected with his or her work task. Be aware of and understand all safety and health regulations applicable to his or her work environment, including the safety and health guidelines. As a minimum requirement, the safety and health training program shall include the following training: the pre-employment safety orientation conducted by the supervisor. This orientation shall cover general information about the company's safety and health program, ongoing hazard analysis, and personal protective awareness and utilization training. Thank you for joining us on this Learning Center presentation.